Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. Now for today's video, we're going to be providing an update on Kontrol Technologies. This is one that I personally hold. There was a lot of big developments in the month of August, and we've welcomed the CEO, Paul Ghezzi, back to the channel to give us an update on his business. Now before we get into that, please take a second, hit the like button, you guys. It's a big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join. And let me know in the comments section below if you've heard of Kontrol Tech before, if you're currently holding shares, and how you think the business is shaping up for the back half of 2023. Now with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. Back by popular demand, we've got Paul Ghezzi, who's the CEO of Kontrol Technologies. Now, Kontrol is one that I personally hold in my account. We've followed this company for quite some time, and there's been a number of big updates in the month of August in terms of business direction. And Paul wanted to get back on the channel and give us some visibility here, which I was just saying is awesome, especially from these smaller companies, to get this two-way communication. So Paul, thanks so much for being with us, and welcome back to the channel.
Yeah, great to be back. Thank you.
Hey, now I know we have a list to go through today. So before we get into it, can you give us a quick update on the business holistically or overall at this point in time?
For sure. So I would say, in this environment, this is a grinded out environment, and put your head down, build the business, manage your expenses, operate profitably, which is what we're doing, pay down debt, which is what we're doing. And so overall, we're pleased with the number of customer additions. We had a couple of announcements recently in the rail sector, and all those wins kind of add up to adding more blue chip customers and continuing to build the business.
Great. And I know generally when we talk about Kontrol Tech, we think of buildings. I saw those announcements in terms of the rail industry as well. So is that emissions from the rail cars and engines, or is that the buildings that CP and KNR and those kind of rail companies own, or what? How should we think about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when you think of control, you should think about facilities, which includes buildings, industrial facilities, and really the rail infrastructure is emissions in a zone. And that's really what we do for industrial customers is what are you emitting in this particular area, this particular zone? And so those will have select monitoring stations set up. And typically when you're doing that, it's because you've got a local population that's adjacent to the place that you're measuring, and they want to know what's going up in the air, and so do the regulatory authorities. So I would say that part of our business, the regulated part of our business, is very healthy, and it has to do with things going up in the air, that could be potentially harmful in a building, a facility, or an industrial setting.
Sure. Okay. Thanks for the clarification, and rightfully so. If I live by a rail line, I'd like to know what's going up in the air too. So now the next question, I know this has been on a lot of investors' mind. Can you give us an update on the debt situation of the company and your strategy there?
Sure. So, I think we had our first chat early January or later in January. We talked about some of our key strategic objectives, and paying down debt was certainly one of them. So the debt's gone from over 15 million to around just under 11, which is really great on our part. And that's been a lot of discipline. And we were, I would say, early in cutting expenses and making sure we had the right size of the business. And so, we want to right size that. And we're in this, what we would define as this forbearance period. And really what that means is we have to right size the debt to the earnings. And this all stems from the subsidiary that we had to let go because of the losses. So if I can get this by the end of the year to, a place where we're out of forbearance, I think that's going to be, very well received. And really that's the path that we're pushing towards.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate the clarity there and the explanation. Obviously, that's a hot topic, and paying down debt, especially in this kind of interest rate environment, is crucial. Now, organic growth. This is another one we've talked about on the channel. Obviously, the core business, you're excited to see growth across North America. What's kind of the landscape or the horizon look like there?
Yeah, so I think if you look at the business, it is growing organically between 15 and 20%. What's driving that is primarily the emission side of the business, the regulated part of the market. And we've got some interesting opportunities that I think are highly scalable in the ethylene oxide market, which is a new market, which is a new regulation driven by the EPA in the US. We put some news out about that So up until this point, we've driven about 2 million of organic revenue, which is a pretty big win considering that we didn't have this technology solution, a year ago. So this is a organic build within the company, servicing a customer who's making a big expansion play into ethylene oxide. So the EPA has come up with all these new rules, and I actually, I think people should go Google EPA and ETO, which is basically ethylene oxide, and you'll see what the ramp up that's happening. So basically, any facility that's emitting ETO in the U.S. is going to be highly regulated down to the parts per million, parts per billion. And we're excited to be part of this, new market. It's a fast-growing market, and we've just dipped our toe into it this year. And I think next year is going to be quite large in terms of the opportunity.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting stuff as we see new regulation come in. Now, when did this new series of regulation really hit the ground here, Paul?
This is really, I would call it like 2022, mid 2023, but it's picking up steam. And so, what it starts with is this is something we want to regulate. This is something we're going to study. A regulation comes out. They give industry time to, put the feelers out there. How much CapEx is this going to require? The lobbyists come out and fight the regulations. But if you Google ETO, you'll see how harmful it could be to employees and local residents that are close to these facilities. So what we're really talking about is monitoring inside the facility and monitoring outside the facility, which is really what we're experts at. And it's kind of interesting to see these regulations pop up that fit your business. You got to pounce on them, which we did. And our emissions team is highly technical, been around for a long time. Great business, and something we can scale into for sure.
Okay, so to summarize here, we can think you're growing in scope in terms of the particles or the contaminants that you're looking for, the emissions you're looking for, and you're growing in terms of the industries like we talked about rail that you're actually servicing as well, hey?
That's correct. That's a good way to look at it. So anything that can be measured that's going up, in the air, whether it's an emission, a particulate, volatile organic compound, anything that's regulated, and typically that part of our business is highly regulated. Someone's looking for information on what's happening, including the customer and the government, and we can fulfill those mandates. And it's a really nice platform we have that's scalable across both what you just said, new opportunities and existing customers.
Sure. And I know from personal experience, especially with government, it seems they never go backwards. As soon as they're monitoring something, it always adds to that. It very rarely goes the other way. So I think for your business...
Think about that, and why that is all these types of regulations are either state, provincial first, and then federal second. And so it's very hard, when you're talking about residents close to factories, think of it this way, those are votes. And it's hard to deregulate or go back on something that you've already established. You don't into force. And so I think 2024 is going to be the year of ETO as kind of an industry that starts to make, more news. It's kind of a quiet industrial problem right now. But next year, I think most large organizations are going to have to take a very serious look at what they have in their facilities and what they're running in their facilities.
Gotcha. Okay, so next year will be a big one to keep an eye on then. And the final question, I know this has been kind of thrown around in the forums and chat rooms and comment section. Capital, the need to raise capital. Is there any of that discussion going on right now at Kontrol Tech, or what can you say to shareholders that are maybe worried about potential dilution and stuff like that?
Yeah, and I think, it's a fair question because I see a lot of small companies raising capital right now. So I would say from our perspective, we're the largest shareholders. And I think we've been that way since the beginning, since we launched the company. So there's no plan right now to raise capital. And because we're profitable and cash flow positive and the debt's coming down, we think those two worlds will meet where your operating earnings are sufficient to have the right leverage against your debt, right? So that's really just deleveraging and growing the business. So there's no need to raise capital right now. We are working on a few tuck-ins, and those would be accretive to our service business. But those are tuck-in acquisitions that I don't think we need to raise significant capital for, and they could be done like early next year. And they're kind of smaller businesses, but very profitable. So our service business does quite well with great margins. And if we can find a small business here or there that we can tuck in, I think we can do those internally.
Gotcha. And is there a specific ratio in terms of revenue to debt that you're targeting, or are we looking?
Yeah, so typically it's 3.25 times EBITDA to debt. So that would put us on a trajectory of, 10 million of debt would be right size or slightly lower. So I think, we're well on our way there to kind of chipping away at the debt and growing the earnings is really a combination.
Yeah, I was going to say just about at that perfect ratio. Okay, well, I know that was most of the questions, Paul, from our comment section or viewers from our last video. Is there anything else you'd like to leave us with? Final thoughts or maybe, I guess, catalysts on the horizon that we didn't cover yet in the call?
Yeah, so I would say the core business is running very well. It's running lean, it's profitable. The catalysts really are, everyone wants blue sky. I want blue sky. And the way to define blue sky is, can you enter a new market, with huge growth potential where you're one of the players that's entering the market early? And I think if you look at the ethylene oxide part, the EPA regulations, we're an early entrance. We've already made profitable revenue, really less than a year. And now we think of next year as kind of the hockey stick potential in that particular market, and then just continuing to grow the core business. And of course, always looking for those blue sky shoots and entering them. One of the things we're well known for is entering into a new vertical profitably, right? We tend to reduce our risk. We try and look at it from not burning the P&L, being profitable, and managing to get in there, in an accretive way early. And so I think we've done that a couple times. You never know where these blue sky opportunities are going to go, but you have to be there in the market. And I think, we're well positioned for what could happen in 2024, specifically with this market.
Sure. I would definitely agree. I've been following the Kontrol story for a couple of years now, and it seems you generally are on the cutting edge of new opportunities. And let's hope this is the big one to kind of propel the company to the next step. So we really appreciate your time. I love the communication we get out of this organization. Sounds like you've got a number of things on the horizon in terms of new opportunities, new verticals, new emission quotas and targets. So we look forward to the next update, and we really appreciate your time coming on today.
Awesome. Thanks to see you. Take care.